Now, one of the most known about crypto systems in the past is called the Enigma Machine. And it's had such an interesting history. A lot of these, how cryptography has been used throughout history has a lot of interesting stories. And the Enigma Machine is basically just uses rotors. You have a keyboard where you're going to type in the message that needs to be encrypted. There's rotors within the actual device, and they're going to move each time there's a new value, a new letter that has to be encrypted. And the encrypted value is going to be shown on the back of the device. So basically, if I type in, let's say, K, the rotors are going to move around, and it will then have a light, have the actual representation of what the encrypted version is, and let's say it's a P. Then I type in Q, then the rotors are going to move, and then it will show what the actual encrypted value is, and let's say it's an A. And what the key setting is, or what the keys for Enigma machines are the settings of the rotors themselves. So you have to have an initial setting for the rotors where they're actually turned, because the rotors are, you can think of them as wheels that have letters all around them or numbers all around them. So the initial setting and how the rotors are going to move throughout the encryption process is the key. So whoever's going to decrypt your message has to have the Enigma machine. They have to know the initial setting of those rotors and how the setting of how they're going to move. So the Enigma machine was used in World War II and developed by a German guy. He actually had one version for non-military use and another version for military use. Now, he didn't actually live long enough to understand the big impact that his invention had on the world, but his machine was used for the German army, the different units, to be able to communicate to each other, so that it would go over like radio waves. Maybe the command section can speak to soldiers or whoever, like on U-boats and at different locations. You know, what is the problem with any type of security? What's the weakest link? Well, it's people. We talked about the weakest link is people. Because with the Enigma machine, there was somebody in the military, the German military, and I guess he wasn't a good soldier. There was something wrong with him. So they kicked him out of the army. Well, so he's a disgruntled guy. And his brother worked high up in the army and put him, this disgruntled guy, gave him a civilian job in an office that deals with encryption, the Enigma machine. So basically you took somebody who's disgruntled, not happy about the army and what the army supposedly did to him, put him in one of the most sensitive places of army activities. So this guy's in where the Enigma machines and the code books and everything's maintained. To get back at Germany, he took the blueprints of the Enigma machine and took it to England, because that's, you know, who is involved with the war, and took it to England, but England thought it was so complex, even with the blueprint, they didn't think that they'd be able to break it. And Poland was not in the war yet, but they got a hold of this blueprint, and they built a huge computer that would be able to break the encryption. So for a long time, as the German units were communicating back and forth to each other, Poland was listening into those communications and nobody knew it. And at the time, the rotors, there was like 3 rotors that were used in the Enigma machine, and then they went to 4 rotors. And the team in Poland knew that they didn't have the processing power to actually break something with 4 rotors. Poland was listening in because their main concern is they didn't want to be brought into the war. They didn't want to be invaded by Germany. So they just listened, and if it seemed like Germany was coming their way, then they were going to do something. So Poland actually took all this information of what they've been working on and over to England. And then England was, of course, quite surprised. And they put a whole team together, over 1,000 people, just to break this encryption and to listen in on the German communication. Since they were able to do that, it's said that it reduced the war by 2 years. And so 2 years, that saved a lot of people's lives, and it affected the war overall, of course. And so there's been movies about the Enigma and how within the war, and there's a code book that whoever has Enigma, everybody has to have the same code book, because the code book indicated the initial rotor settings and how the rotors would change through the encryption process.